Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Fabric Tech Talk Fridays. I'm your host, Swetha Mannepalli. Today, I have a really cool topic. We're going to talk about all things mirroring, open mirroring, and we're not just going to do the talk. I have two amazing guests with me on the show today. I've got Maraki Ketema, who is the Principal Product Manager at Microsoft for all things mirroring. Maraki, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, Swetha. Thanks for having me back. Super excited to talk about all things mirroring and bring in a customer story as well. View has been able to leverage open mirroring to bring business central data for a bunch of his customers, and really excited to hear about his journey.
Let's dive right in, Maraki. Today, like I said, we also have Wium Swart, the customer who is actually leveraging open mirroring to solve real world problems. Wium, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I've been a big fan of the Fabric Tech Talks, and it's a pleasure to be on. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about how Open Ring is changing the game for PC users, getting the data out. And yeah, super excited to get into it.
So, Maraki, before we get into the goodness of all things that we're going to unleash and talk about today, let's start with what is mirroring, why open mirroring, what is the new distinction between these two?
Yes. So, in order to really talk about mirroring and open mirroring, you really have to understand OneLake. And OneLake is essentially the foundation for all things Fabric. It's the one, like the OneDrive for data that allows you to bring all of your data together for all of your AI and business analytics needs without needing you to provision it or scale it up or down. We manage all of that for you. But the big question, right, is how do I actually even bring data into OneLake, right? How do I even get started? And for sources that have data in a proprietary format, mirroring is a really amazing way to do this. What it allows you to do is connect to the entire database and start creating an exact replica of that data in near real time. So as data is changing at the source, we keep the replica up to date in OneLake as well. Now, in that entire process, what we're actually doing is making sure that the data, as it's being pushed into OneLake, is put into a Delta format as well as optimized for downstream services, whether you're using Power BI or data agents or SQL endpoint or any of those things. And the beauty of all of it is mirroring is free. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a moment. Now, here are all of the different sources that we support today. If your data is in an open format, you can leverage shortcuts. And if your data is in a proprietary format in Oracle or Google BigQuery or SQL Server, you can leverage mirroring. Now, the data landscape is not just limited to the sources you saw on the last screen. Data is everywhere. It's spread out across different systems, different applications, and bringing it all together is really hard. And that's why we created open mirroring, which enables partners as well as customers to build their own mirroring solutions for the source that is relevant for them. So for Wium, what he did was he noticed, hey, Business Central was not on that list that I showed in that slide. So he actually wrote an incredible script that brought Business Central data into OneLake to help his customers get started with Fabric. The beauty of all things mirroring is that you get free compute and free storage up to a certain limit. And what that means is if you are on an F64, you get 64 terabytes of free storage. If you're on an F256, you get 256 terabytes of free storage. So it's really kind of like a no-brainer when you're trying to get started with Fabric and get going, whether you're trying to build a medallion architecture using notebooks, or building out data agents for your marketing team or your finance team to help answer quick questions. Mirroring is an incredible way to get started with Fabric.
Wonderfully said. And mirroring really connects well with my journey as a product marketer, Maraki, because the naming, I was part of leading the effort with naming mirroring, and it is resonating really well with all our customers and partners. So amazing to have you back to share a lot more in detail about mirroring and open mirroring. Now, let's go to how do we put this into practice? How do we take a real business challenge and how do we get into the details of the problems that open mirroring solved? I know today's topic, we want to talk about how you can bring Business Central data using open mirroring, land it into Fabric, and unlock all the capabilities that Maraki just mentioned. You can use once the data is in Fabric OneLake, you can basically do pretty much anything. You can do Power BI on top of it, data agents, SQL endpoints, you name it. So now, before we get into discovering all of that, VM, why don't you just ground us on what is Business Central data?
So Business Central is technically a tool that is used for small to medium enterprises. It connects a lot of business operations so that you don't have to manage like normal operations like logistics, sales, services, and finances in multiple systems. It acts as one unified platform where accountants can use it, logistics managers can use it. It's pretty much all in one. It's highly complex, and there's a lot of systems involved, a lot of data types that you have to deal with. But a way you can kind of understand it is as one super tool to run most of what your business does.
So it's an ERP system, so to speak.
Exactly. That's a quick definition of it.
Wonderful. So is it Microsoft's own Dynamics 365 kind of data that we're talking about from an ERP perspective, Wium?
Exactly. It's a Microsoft tool, and it's been around for a while. It was initially called Nav. Now it's Business Central. The most recent big development that happened with Business Central is they moved all their servers from on-premise to the cloud. And that'll come in late in the presentation, but that's a large factor. So where everyone was storing their data and all these systems were connecting to on-prem servers, it's now moved into the cloud, bringing new functionality and also new challenges, which I'll also talk about.
Let's unveil. What challenges, now that you talked about challenges, let's start there. What challenges were you and your customers facing with generating all the business insights that Business Central data can provide?
As I mentioned, the move from on-prem to the cloud brought new opportunities and challenges. One of those challenges is that you can no longer connect directly to the database. When the data is on-prem, you can just connect your Power BI reports right in there. You can connect Excel right to it. Now it's on the cloud, you've kind of got these two methods to get data out. It's either a thing called OData API, which can send data out, but it's throttled. You can't set huge amounts of data, and it's a bit of a mission to set up. The other format is via CSV. So we're really limited with these two types of data to get data out. And to kind of get more into it, or what our initial challenge was, is that we had to get this data out because our clients are moving from on-prem to the cloud. They still had reports. They still needed to do something. So we had to build something fast. So we still provided the data to them on a SQL analytics endpoint. But that process is quite tricky. So we had to orchestrate it with Python, blob stores. I can show you a bit more of the architecture here. So we had to first get the data out of Business Central via CSV. It would land in a blob. Python would then look at that blob file, look at the data inside, look at the schema, translate it, and then send it to a SQL database. What ended up happening is we were running two schedules, 3 different systems. So with that complexity, you're bound to run into some of these problems I showed you. So we had to maintain that thing continuously. We had struggles with reliability. Obviously, the fact that it has to pass through 3 nodes means that we're going to struggle with performance issues. We also can't generate 30 plus databases for each individual client. A lot of these businesses aren't they're operations based. They care about their business and what they do. They don't have time or necessarily the budget to hire a whole data team. So we need to kind of give them something affordable as well. So we put all the data into one database and then managed access via row-level security, which worked, but it's not ideal. It leaves these open gaps for, our data's not living completely separately. And then obviously things can get fragile. So since it's human-made, it's not the whole team of Microsoft here that we got. We've got a few very talented developers, and we've been trying our best with that solution to keep it going and keep our customers happy with this move from on-prem to the cloud.
Got it. Now, to add one other thing to all the challenges that you mentioned, probably the data is not as near real time that your customers or clients might like it, right? And adds to the complexity of all the things.
Exactly. So each one of these nodes takes a bit of time. So the writing of data from BC to the blob is one job. The second job of the Python, how do you perfectly time these two things? So there's also a room for lagging. So as it also moves through different systems, there's obviously this delay. And obviously our orchestration, that's where things also get tricky. As you add more companies, you need bigger pipelines, you need more complexity. So yeah, our data wasn't as live as we would have liked it.
Got it. So what led you to explore open mirroring with Microsoft Fabric? How did you hear about open mirroring? Talk to us about that journey.
Sure. So I was brought in to change this, to basically fix this pipeline. And I had a bit of a wish list. So I've been a data engineer for a few years, and I know what the metrics are and the KPIs that you use to determine what a good pipeline and a good data architecture looks like. And I came with my wish list, my must-haves and my nice-to-haves. So my must-haves was low maintenance, high reliability. It must be scalable. If we add one client, if we add lots more, it should be able to keep up with them. I wanted to separate clients out. I don't want everyone in the same database. I want them having their own unique space where they can do operations. And I also want the pipeline to be more simple, less complex, less of this maintenance. And then I had some nice to haves. So obviously BC is a Microsoft product. We'd like to keep things within Microsoft. Cost is also a factor. So cost and efficiency. Our clients are paying for a data service. We need to also factor that in. And we want to get the data a lot more real time. It needs to move significantly faster. And then there's this last factor was whatever we move to, it needs to be able to deal with this data type of CSV, because that's one of our limitations. That's the way we get a lot of data out of BC. And CSV is one of those, the only way we can get the data out.
Got it. So now you did consider alternatives. That's what gave you the option of, okay, open mirroring is the way to go. What are the other alternatives, and how do you think open mirroring stood out early on in your journey of thinking that this is the solution that's going to solve our problem?
So in terms of alternatives, we already had our existing pipeline that we could have used to try and adapt, make it better.
Got it.
We could have started working PySpark jobs, things like that. But we're also not a huge team. This data division that's been established, it's me, it's growing. It's gone from 1 person, 2 people, 3 people. So I also can't manage extremely complex pipelines. I have to be multifaceted. I need to talk with clients. I need to build data pipelines. I need to build reports. I don't have time to fully engineer this whole system. I need something that I can kind of use. So I went on and I kept researching what can do it. I knew that Fabric was where I wanted to put the data because Microsoft plays well with Microsoft. A lot of people's reporting is based in Power BI. Fabric is kind of a successor to Power BI. So I knew it wanted to go there. It was just a matter of deciding what tool am I going to use to get into Fabric, as well as on the BC side, the sending of data, how am I going to do that? So what I eventually discovered was this open mirroring tool. I saw that it works well with a lot of different data types, CSV being one of them. I studied the landing zone. I got on Reddit. I met up with Maraki, got some of her feedback and been iterating there. But one also other big help is that we discovered a community tool, or it's a open source repo on GitHub called BT2LLS. So that already had a lot of the good bones for our data pipeline. It was just a matter of now getting our talented BC devs to also contribute to that, build something that we can make more production ready, as well as add to the community and make something that a lot of people can use.
Got it. So I want to do 2 shout outs with the Reddit community. If you haven't already started using Reddit community or for Microsoft Fabric, highly recommend, because it is where all our Fabric engineers, product managers, or CAP team members, they're all in there helping customers like Wium and many others solve their data challenges using not just any tool, but specifically if you have any challenges within Microsoft Fabric, that is the community that you can collaborate, learn from others, learn from the product teams themselves. So highly recommend. So that's a plug that I wanted to do. A huge shout out to the Reddit community for Microsoft Fabric. If you haven't already, go check that out. The other thing is the GitHub repo for anybody who are on the same path, like VM is for moving Business Central data to anything within the Microsoft ecosystem. Check out that repo as well. Do you have a demo, or can you take us to your laptop and show us how you implemented this in real life?
Sure. So with our pipeline, I initially showed you how we were sending data from BC to a blob to Python to SQL, multiple nodes, lots of moving parts. Our new setup, we basically have a BC export app. It loads right into Fabric Open Mirroring, and the data shoots in one go. and then allows users to connect their Excel, their Power BI, whatever they need. So big improvement in terms of the amount of moving parts and also the speed of data. The fact that we're not doing two schedules and we don't have one huge orchestration pipeline also significantly helps. We send data from BC, it lands in Open Mirroring, and it's instantly replicated. So a big benefit for this for a BC user and for a lot of BC users out there is that they can manage their own data via the BC app. So that BC app will sit on your tenant. It'll track what's happening in the tables, the deletes, the inserts, the updates. And then when a export is triggered using a job queue, a CSV file is going to be sent with all the instructions to delete, to update, to do whatever. It's going to land in the landing zone. And then a couple of seconds later, it's going to end up on the SQL endpoint for you to use. A great benefit of BC data is that it's already really clean. So as soon as it's land in Open Mirroring, it's pretty much ready to go for reporting, because Open Mirroring does such a good job of keeping it clean and managing updates, inserts, all these things that we've built in the past where things get tricky. The team at Open Mirroring is doing a lot of hard work to keep things accurate.
Perfect. No, this is amazing. Now, I would love to learn more about the business impact. I think you already have that going for us. Take it away, Wium.
Sure. So in terms of the business impact, it allowed users to control their own data. So select whatever tables you'd like to export, send it. By the time that you've clicked the button to export the data or set up a job on the job queue, it's just a matter of going to the SQL database, checking there. It's ready to go in your Excel reports and your Power BI reports. With companies also moving to Fabric, we've opened up a whole new gateway, because Fabric is almost like a candy shop. There's so many resources you can use. A lot of it is low to no code. So with the data also there, companies that want to get into AI, that want to start having notebooks and Python and Spark jobs running on their data, they have that capability now. They're in the candy shop.
Wonderful. I love the analogy, by the way.
Of course.
So to wrap up, I would love for you to let everybody know, or what is that one advice that you want to give to folks who are either figuring out what is the right way, what are the use cases that they can start using Open Mirroring. So what is that one consideration, one call to action that you would like to leave for folks who are seeing?
Sure. So when it comes to getting started with Open Mirroring, I find it's a fairly easy resource to get into. The docs aren't overly long. You can read them very quickly. As long as you understand how the landing zone works, you pretty much can understand how the rest of Open Mirroring works pretty well. When it comes to your BC data, obviously that BC to AWS repos is very useful. A lot of the code's there. We're contributing it and we're making it better for everyone. And then a nice little tip I can give is to connect your Azure Storage Explorer to your landing zone. Then you can also monitor how data is flowing in. It helps a lot with debugging and can make the whole move to Fabric and your learning a lot easier if you just know what that landing zone looks like. If you can understand that, you can pretty much the Microsoft team and Fabric will take care of the rest as long as it lands correctly.
So we up until now, we talked about mirroring, Open Mirroring, how reference architecture, using the reference architecture that you put together, how do you bring Business Central data, land it into Fabric OneLake using Open Mirroring. But at Fabric Tech Talk Fridays, we typically don't just do the talk, we walk the talk. Would you mind taking us to your laptop? Show us what you got.
Sure, of course. So I'm going to explain it from a normal BC user's perspective, not a data engineer, how easy it is to send the data that you'd like. So what I've done here is I've configured the tables I would like to send for the relevant companies. All that I have to do is send the data to Fabric. So what I'll do just beforehand is just show you my landing zone. I've got a very small schema in here, so you can see it's empty. I'm going to then export my schema. So that's basically just my tables, table names, column names, data types. So we can check in the landing zone. If I hit refresh, boom, there's my tables. There's my schema, my metadata.jsons. Now let's load all the data. So I'm going to say export all companies. And then what's happening
there is nothing on Fabric OneLake. So it's just doing the metadata into the landing zone at this time.
Exactly. It's starting to send the data to the landing zone.
Got it.
So what you'll see if I now refresh this landing zone, boom, I've got my CSVs. That's my data actually physically coming in. From a Fabric perspective, you can see I had no data. If I hit refresh, I can actually, I can see, okay, my tables are in. They've started replication, they're actively running. And in a couple seconds time, we're going to see a last completed state. So I've hit refresh. It will come, then the refresh from here. And there, after a refresh, we can see that it's loaded. I can see I've got one issue here. If I just hover over this little speech bubble, I can see, okay, the issue is the table's been stuck in a snapshotting status too long. I've probably left it too long in this training Open Mirroring database, but also good to know when stuff is going wrong. We can see the amount of rows replicated, the last time the data was sent, very helpful. And then from a user perspective, they're not going to go check the landing zone. They care about the SQL endpoint. So I'd simply just go to my SQL endpoint, go to my relevant schema where the data is being sent to. But from a normal BC user's perspective, they're not going to be monitoring the landing zone the whole time. They just want to go straight to the SQL endpoint, go right to their specific schema, grab the column they're looking for, select the data, look at it, but not from just a SQL's perspective, which you like to go and see it. You want to pull this into Excel. You want to pull it into Power BI. The world basically runs on Excel. So having the data there in a format that's extremely fast, high speed, super helpful to users. What we found that a lot of users use is that, for instance, build a view in Fabric on BC logic. So basically enhance their BC data, put it into Excel, and then continue their reporting. With the fact that the data loads so quickly, they can actually marry their operational tasks that they have to do with the reporting, because the data can actually keep up with that BC system that's literally running live.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, Wium. And folks, if you haven't started your journey with open mirroring, I think with everything that has been shared today from Maraki and also Wium specifically on the Business Central, bringing Business Central data using open mirroring, I think you have everything to go start your own journey. Thank you for your time, Wium. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you everyone for watching. If you found this video valuable, don't forget, hit that like button.
If this is your first time visiting the Microsoft Fabric YouTube channel, be sure to smash that subscribe button.
Drop a comment below on what you'd like to see on future episodes of Fabric Tech Talk Fridays.
That's it for today. See you all next Friday for another deep dive into Microsoft Fabric.